Plagueis stands face to face with his adversary in the Force, Grandmaster Yoda, underneath the surface of Bal'demnic, staring deeply into the seasoned Jedi's eyes. This has been the opportunity that he'd been looking for years, the chance to cripple the Jedi Order by defeating one of its finest warriors. Master Yoda, what a pleasure it is to finally meet you in person, Plagueis muses. Yoda scoffs.
Sith, you are?
He asks. You could call me that, Plagueis replies. Yoda's scowl permeates the room. The place radiates a dark aura, and Yoda can feel it attempting to penetrate his soul. However, he wouldn't budge.
To the Senate, I must bring you. Stand trial, you must,
Yoda states. Plagueis simply laughs. Oh, my dear Jedi Master, you are sorely mistaken, I'm afraid. Today, you have discovered me. So, you must either join me or die. Yoda continues to pierce Plagueis with his stare.
Join you? I will not. Die? I will not,
Yoda says. Plagueis smiles. Oh, such a shame it is. Manipulating you and forcing you to watch your order crumble from the inside would have been such fun. Ah, well, I suppose one cannot always make pleasure and work. However, I will take a great deal of pleasure in killing you today. In that moment, Plagueis unleashes a barrage of force lightning in Yoda's direction, and he deflects it with his own force powers. This was the fight of the millennia. Light versus dark was clashing once more. Soon, someone would emerge victorious. Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Yoda had learned about the manipulation of Plagueis before the Phantom Menace? If so, you're in luck, because that's exactly what we'll be exploring today. So buckle up, grab some Bantha Brew, and let's dive right into what would have happened if Yoda had discovered Plagueis. In the events directly following the Acolyte, after Master Vernesta tells Yoda everything about what has happened in the recent months, Yoda actually decides to do something. He convenes an immediate meeting of the High Council.
Bring this to you, I do, with grave seriousness,
Yoda says to the council.
Because I believe that this, the undoing of the Jedi, could be,
he says. Then he recounts everything that Master Vernesta had told him about the mysterious red lightsaber wielder and what it could possibly mean to the Order. After this meeting, Yoda puts forward a proposition.
Believe I do that bringing this matter to the Senate would be a poor decision. Believe that the Jedi can monitor ourselves internally. I do. Killing Jedi? This Sith is, he says. Especially if a rogue apprentice he is. Our domain, this is.
The rest of the council agrees with him. They say that they're going to remain more vigilant, especially with the people in political office, the ones who are challenging the Jedi's power in the galaxy. The High Republic Jedi Council then agrees to establish a commission to hunt down Khmer and capture him, hopefully seeking to find him and any of his accomplices. Knowing that this is going to be a difficult task, especially since Master Soul, one of the more prominent members of the Order, had been bested by this new dark side user and his apprentice, Yoda assigns some of the top masters in the Order to this task, including Master Vernesta. For years, this commission seems to be absolutely detrimental. There's no word about anything, and it seems like a waste of the Jedi's time and resources. There isn't any movement from any dark side users that they can tell, and the Jedi are simply starting to believe that Khmer and Osha had either died or gone into extreme hiding, and were concealing their presences very carefully. In the shadows, though, the figure who had been spying on Osha and Khmer springs into action. Seeking to prove himself to his master, Darth Tenous, Darth Plagueis the Wise, who is the figure at the end of the Acolyte's first season, goes into battle. While they are sleeping and while they are vulnerable, he moves in, slowly creeping into Khmer's residence and feeling what his next steps should be. Using the dark side, he conceals his presence, and he goes immediately up to Khmer while he sleeps and stabs him straight through the chest. Then he goes to Osha, who is also sleeping, but her eyes shoot open as she begins to feel the presence of somebody in the room after Kymer had died. Then Plagueis runs back into the shadows, and when Osha is looking around, he blasts force lightning in her direction, completely crippling her and sending her to the ground. Then, after she had been sufficiently crippled, he goes and cuts her throat cleanly with his blade. Following that, he looks towards the bedside near Kymer's place of rest, and he sees that Cortosis helmet that he had been wearing in the Acolyte. He likes it, and he can sense that something is different about it, so he steals it. Then he links up with his master following this encounter, and shows Tenebris what he had discovered.
I also disposed of the 2 Sith posers, Plagueis says, bowing before Tenebris. They will not interrupt our plans again.
Tenebris praises him.
Good work, Plagueis. We will continue our search for more of whatever this material is on the planet. I have a feeling that this is special.
Plagueis then looks up at his master.
Actually, on my voyage here, Master Tenebris, I tested how the armor worked. I ignited my blade and tried to cut the helmet to see if it would break, but instead, my lightsaber shorted out. I believe that this is Cortosis, and that this planet must have an abundance of it for there to be enough to make this helmet.
Once again, Tenebris smiles.
Excellent, Plagueis. We shall go to this planet and find where the Cortosis came from. We will look where they were situated, these imposters, and dig into what this material truly is.
When Plagueis and Tenebris return to Bal'demnic and begin exploring the Cortosis caves and verifying that the metal is real, Plagueis decides that this would be the perfect opportunity to finally assume the mantle of Master. Using only his mastery of the Force, while Tenebris has his back turned, focusing on one of the droids that is analyzing the Cortosis samples, Plagueis smiles as he raises him up in the air with a brutal Force choke. Tenebris gasps in shock, and he attempts to bring his lightsaber to his hand, but Plagueis pulls it away from his belt with the Force and tosses it aside.
Thank you for your tutelage, Master Tenebris, he says. But now it is my turn to carry on the legacy of the Sith. This will be the first step to finally usurping the Jedi and their pathetic Senate.
With a reliance on their blades, Plagueis says, looking towards the Cortosis, still holding his master in the air.
Many Jedi will fall to this new discovery that I can use to further the grand plan of the Sith.
He smiles and then throws Tenebris against the wall, smacking his head into one of the rocks and knocking him unconscious. Plagueis then goes towards him and stabs his lightsaber directly through Tenebris's chest. He knows that this discovery could also further his own personal wealth that he could use to further manipulate the financial system and also manipulate senators via lobby groups and impressive donations to their campaign. He could sell Cortosis on the black market as well to further destabilize the Jedi. Any Cortosis that was used against them could perpetuate fear throughout their ranks, and it would be a win for the Dark Lord. He leaves the cave and decides that he would be setting up a base here. This was where his mining career would begin, and Cortosis would be his new thing. Plagueis looks towards the skies of Bal'demnic, the beautiful blue, and decides that this was the day that the Jedi were going to die. One day, a few months later, as Qui-Gon and Dooku are on a mission together to restore peace to a planet that had been captured by raiders and who had instilled an illegitimate government, they end up encountering something strange. When they try to use their lightsabers after they're getting blasted at by these illegitimate armies that have taken over the planet and taken over the capital city, They pull out their lightsabers and try to cut down these soldiers, but then their lightsabers short out. Qui-Gon and Dooku look at one another in shock, jumping out of the way as blaster bolts come their way, and they are forced to rely on the Force to push these guys away. Their lightsabers will not work against their armor, so Dooku and Qui-Gon work together to use the Force and manipulate these mercenaries into losing the fight. They push them against walls, throw them up in the air, and toss them away like they are mere puppets. Since they can't use their sabers, this is the only option that they have. Many of them are knocked unconscious, and others end up running away, fearing for their lives, as the Jedi continue to defend the legitimate rule of the planet. Once the battle is done, and once these illegitimate raiders have surrendered because of Qui-Gon and Dooku's efforts, they look at one another, wondering what exactly had happened. So, on the way back to their planet, after they had once again wished the new governor well and the new senator well in their positions on the planet, hoping that they wouldn't have to engage in these aggressive negotiations again, they decide that they are going to talk to the council about this. They have to, after all. In their debrief with Master Yoda and the other members of the council, they begin to tell them about what had transpired.
Master Yoda, it was incredibly strange, Master Dooku says. These people, these mercenaries, their armor caused our lightsabers to short out temporarily.
But watch! Dooku calls his lightsaber to his hand and ignites it, showing the Jedi Council that it still worked.
This weapon is still perfectly functional. I've never seen anything like it before. In fact, I have only read about it in the archives, he says. Have you ever heard of cortosis, Master Yoda?
At this, Master Yoda's back straightened.
Illegal, that is. The Senate barred its use, they did, he says. Ah, yes, I see you've done your reading, Master Yoda. There, the day the legislation was made, I was, Yoda says. Deeply concerning, this is.
The other Jedi Council members look at one another and start to nod.
If circulates, the cortosis does. Deeply detrimental to our influence, it could be, he says. Respect for the Jedi, lost it will be, he continues. Sanctioned by the Senate, this is not, Yoda says. Inform the Senate of this, I will, he continues.
So, the next day, in a session of the Senate, Yoda goes forward and actually informs the Chancellor directly of this development. And he asks if the Jedi would be allowed to investigate this themselves. The Senate and the Chancellor grant this request. And this is where the hunt for the cortosis begins. For a few years, nothing staggering happens. There isn't any movement and no more people seem to be using the cortosis. However, once Master Yoda appoints Mace Windu to be a Jedi Counselor, and he also decides to put Mace Windu in charge of the hunt for this cortosis, things start to get done. In the meantime, on the other side of things, Plagueis continues to further his influence across the galaxy through his massive amounts of wealth and influence within the Mune banking clan. He also continues to keep his eye on the young Palpatine, whose potential grows every single day to mold into the perfect Sith apprentice. Day by day, the Senate becomes more obsolete under Higo Damask's manipulation of the financial system and of the politicians who furthered the status quo. At this point, Mace starts to actually track down many of the former mercenaries who had survived the instance with Qui-Gon and Dooku on this planet, and he decides that he is going to go to the ones in prison and talk to them. He talks to many of them and has conversations with a lot of them. They're pretty weak-willed, so they give in to Mace very easily. There's no hope for them to escape prison. Why would they not talk? They tell him that they had received the cortosis from somebody else. And so Mace goes and tracks down the seller of the cortosis, and it turned out that that was a middleman, somebody who had been obtaining the cortosis from a mine on Bal'demnic under the strange instructions of a masked person who never told them their name and who always wore something that concealed their face. So, when Windu hears of this development, he goes back to the Jedi Council, ready to inform them of what he had learned.
Masters, I've discovered something incredible, he says. I believe I know where this cortosis is coming from.
Yoda looks at him and gives him a slight nod.
Continue, you must, Master Windu. I've discovered that this strange material is coming from a mine on some backwater world called Bal'demnic, he says. I believe that we should go investigate there immediately and see what is the case with this mysterious mineral.
Yoda nods even more.
Agree with you, I do. Believe that I should personally oversee this. I also do. Take a group of us to investigate personally. I shall, he says. Sense that there are many things afoot. I do, Yoda says. More than meets the eye to this. I believe there is.
Do you think that there's a plot to destroy the Jedi? Master Windu asks. Yoda's eyes narrow.
Unsure of this. I am,
Yoda says.
Required further investigation is.
On the way to the planet, Yoda enters a deep state of meditation. He wants to be in his best form and clear his mind for whatever lay on the world of Bal'demnic. Yoda wasn't going to let anything get to him. However, while he is meditating, all that Yoda can hear are the screams of the innocent and the thin veil of darkness surrounding them, permeating the Force, crushing his being. When Yoda wakes up from his slumber and his meditative state, he sees that they have arrived at Bal'demnic. Something feels strange about the world, but he presses onwards alongside Dooku, Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Plo Koon, ready to discover the truth. Meanwhile, on the planet below, Plagueis had been visiting the world to check the progress of the mining with his new apprentice, Palpatine. Suddenly, as soon as the Jedi emerge in orbit, he can sense their presence.
Jedi,
Plagueis says. He orders that they flee deep into the caves of the world and pounce when they're ready, setting the trap for whoever was coming after them. While they didn't want to reveal themselves to the Jedi immediately, now would be the perfect time to slay more of them and further weaken their order. Soon, a conflict between the Jedi and the Sith, the likes of which had not taken place for millennia, would transpire, and soon a champion of the Force would emerge. Initially, when the Jedi land, they sense nothing wrong. However, it's quite evident where the cortosis mine is. Many droids are flying in and out of the caves, and there's a shelter where the substance could be collected for refinement. So, the Jedi land right there, in front of the shelter, and investigate what's going on. All of the droids that come to attack them are sliced up by the Jedi's sabers, and each and every one of them can tell that there is something strange about this place in particular. When they start entering the cave, they begin to hear movement in the shadows. Simple clicks of feet on the cement, or the rustling of rocks, but something is there that isn't just a droid. They enter a heightened state of alertness, ready to go and ready to see anything that would come at them. Eventually, as the Jedi go deeper and deeper and deeper into the cave, the Jedi hear a thump behind them. Yoda turns around and he sees two hooded figures looking back at them, red blades in hand. Sith. At the beginning of this altercation, Sidious and Plagueis manage to kill off Plo Koon and Ki-Adi-Mundi quite quickly, as they, while still strong in the Force, are not prepared for the Sith attack, and they're forced to deal with Yoda, Dooku, and Windu.
Go, Sidious, Plagueis orders. Deal with the two Jedi. I will take on Master Yoda,
he says. Palpatine is powerful, and he keeps his face veiled as he battles with Dooku and with Windu. Their sabers twist and twirl, in the likes of which a conflict hadn't been seen in centuries. His mastery of the Force is acute, and he fires Force lightning at both of them, but each of them are able to block. Dooku being the ever-powerful swordsman, and Windu using his Vapod to change the direction of the fight, and use the dark side energy of Palpatine to put it back at him. Eventually, the two slice and dice and disarm Sidious. He looks at them as they corner him, and Windu raises his saber and stabs him through the chest. Sidious is defeated. Meanwhile, on the other side of the cave, Yoda and Plagueis attempt to deal with their Force prowess. Neither of them use their blades. Instead, Plagueis fires Force lightning in the direction of Yoda, who blocks it and fires it back towards Plagueis. Eventually, Yoda uses a power that he very rarely attempts to utilize, Force Judgment, and blasts Plagueis with yellow lightning, who also takes that in stride, laughing and absorbing it into his hands, collecting the power to fire right back at Yoda. Initially, this conflict is a simple stalemate, their knowledge of the Force casting a bright blast through the cave. Yoda uses the power that he rarely does once again to counter that incredible Force lightning from Plagueis. At this moment, Plagueis sees the prowess of Yoda and believes that he can try and convince him to join the dark side. "Join me, Master Yoda," he says, "and I will show you the true power of the Force beyond your Jedi dogma." Yoda simply scowls. "Join you? I will not. Protect the Republic? I will." Finally, at the end of this fight, just as Yoda is beginning to become worn down and tired, and as Plagueis double downs on his assault of Force lightning, Mace Windu and Dooku join in the fight. The three Jedi use their sabers to collectively push back against the Force lightning that Plagueis is showering upon them, while simultaneously using their hands in the Force to push it back in his direction. Plagueis, being consumed by the dark side, is unable to stop his onslaught of Force lightning. So, when it comes back in his direction with too much force for him to be able to counter, he's pushed backwards against the wall of the cave. Yoda ends up walking towards him, seeing his yellow Sith eyes and the smile of Plagueis. "I always knew that you would become the very thing you swore to destroy," he says. "You Jedi are no better than I am, perpetuating your own power through the galaxy and protecting a corrupt republic. One day you shall see the error of your ways," Plagueis says. Yoda looks at him, not saying a word, and simply slays him. The threat of the Sith ended. It finally has," Yoda says. After this event, the galaxy begins to return to normal. Yoda, Mace, and Dooku brief the rest of the council on what had transpired on Bal'demnic. And they also end up telling the Senate about their encounter, especially since now that they had dealt with the threat. The Senate commandeers the mine and places the Jedi in charge of whatever was to happen next. Yoda decides that destroying it would be more valuable for the Order than leaving it be, especially if somebody new discovered it with ill will towards the Jedi. Even though the Sith were now gone, Master and Apprentice destroyed. So, the mine is blown up, and the planet of Bal'demnic returns to obscurity with no more cortosis. The galaxy returns to a state of relative normalcy, and the Jedi continue to be the dominant faction that they were in terms of galactic force, religion, and politics. Everything seems to return to normal, and the galaxy is once again at peace. Hey everyone, thanks for watching another Bantha Stew episode. Today I actually have Plagueis on the show, but he can only stay briefly, so I wanted to introduce you. Hello, Darth Plagueis the Wise. It is my pleasure to be on this show. I've been watching your What Ifs for a long time, and I quite enjoy them. I wish that I had been able to be the one to rule the galaxy, but alas, that simply was not the case. I understand, Plagueis. Maybe another shot, maybe in one of our videos, you'll end up being Emperor. Ooh, I would quite like that. After all, I could use the Force to manipulate the midi-chlorians and create... Yeah, life, I know. I've heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, but anyway, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being our guest. I hope that you've had an absolutely spectacular time listening to our What If. I liked this one, minus the fact that the Jedi won. Well, thank you for joining us anyway, and thank all of you for watching today. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a comment below. What did you like? What didn't you like? What do you think could be done better? Would you like to see a part 2? If so, what do you think would happen? Also, I would highly recommend that each and every one of you join the Discord server for a more fun Star Wars community with people who also love everything Star Wars and want to chat about it. So, please join our Discord, comment on the video, and, as always, I hope that you've had an absolutely bantatacular rest of your day, and that you've had your daily delicious dose of Bantha Stew.